G'day everyone, it's Jacob here, back with another video on the Ranger Raptor. Today we're going to be doing another quality of life modification to the Ranger, or you can do this to any car, and that's a bit of sound deadening in the doors. Basically with sound deadening and stuff like that, it just stops like any road noise coming through the doors, makes your audio quality sound better, and I'll explain a bit more on that later on. And it's a fairly simple mod that you can do yourself. All you need basically is usually with most cars, a screwdriver and a little pick tool. With ranges and stuff, you will also need a T20 Torx bit, just because there is one Torx that sits right behind the door handle. And basically I'm just going to show you the difference between the two sides, because I've already done the driver's side, so I'll show you the difference between the driver versus the passenger, just the sound of the door itself, the sound of the door closing, and just the general, I can't really show you the audio quality because YouTube copyright and all that. Also, it's hard to film when you're playing music on your phone, but I will show you the benefits to it. It's not a super expensive mod to do. It depends on the type of sound deadening equipment you get. I personally use two different types. I use Focal BAM. BAM is made by a company called Focal. They're a very good speaker company, and they make probably one of the best sound deadening in the business for audio quality, which is why you put those in the door. The other one I use is Dynamat. Dynamat is a world-renowned as one of the best sound deadeners out there. It's more of a thinner aluminium-based style, whereas the Focal BAM is a foam-based, and that's good for like your floors, your back wall, your roof. But the roof you can use BAM because it's just a nicer and lighter quality sound deadening material. Alright, so here's the beast here. So if we go over to the driver's side, which I've already done, we'll have a quick listen of what it sounds like on the door. So you can hear how it's a dull thud. Almost like the door is now made out of fiberglass or something, compared to normal steel. So that's a lot louder than that. Also, when you open the door, it's a much quieter open, and when you close it, you just hear the door lock itself. Where if we go over to the other side, it takes about half a year to walk around a Raptor. You open the door, hear that empty echoing noise to it, and then slam it shut. You can hear the sound reverberate through the door itself. So we're going to be changing that, and I'll show you how to take a rear door panel off and a front door panel off, and basically how easy it is to install the Focal BAM. I've also got these here. They're basically a speaker sound deadening kit. I'm just going to use the backings because I'm not installing new speakers at this stage. But essentially what that does is you stick that behind the speaker, and what that eliminates is when your speaker moves, it obviously causes vibrations front and back. The front obviously goes out into the cab, but the back hits the door. And usually the problem with that is, number one, you get a lot of sound coming out the back of your doors, but what it also does is the sound waves bounce back off of a flat surface like your door panel and goes straight back into the back of your speaker, causing a bit of distortion, especially at higher levels. So we'll be installing that as well. Alright, so we're looking at the rear door panel here, and if you look at it, there's not many screws on it, but that is very disingenuous, because we can first start off looking down here. There are two Phillips head screws down the bottom holding it in. Then you've got another screw behind this plate here. All you need to do to take that off, open that, get a little pick tool in that corner there and just pull it towards you, and it's got 4 plastic pressure clips that'll just pop that out. And the last 2 screws are always in the handle. There's one down here and one up here, and you can usually remove this with your hand. If not, you do need like a trim removal tool, but you get your fingers under there, pull, pop the bottom, and then make sure to hold fairly high up here, because it's basically like a circle with a clip on top, and it's going to sound like it's going to break when it comes off, but trust me, it doesn't, and it takes quite a bit of force. There you go. So that's that clip I was talking about there. So that is very loud when it comes out, but don't worry too much about it. Also, it's left one of its plastic clips in there, so make sure to take that out and just put it back on the trim piece there. You got that clip out, and now you can see there's one screw in there in the deep dark depths, and there's another one just down here in that deep dark depths. So you'll be removing those two, as long as and those two down the bottom. And for this one, it's going to be hard doing this with one hand, but get this in behind there, apply a bit of pressure, and pull back. And there you go. You've got that piece. Like I said, those 4 little plastic pressure clips, so it's not too hard to remove. And that's your T20 Torx bit I was talking about before. So we'll go ahead, remove those screws, and then I'll show you how to take the rest of the door panel off. Alright, so now we've got all the screws out. What you want to do is get your hand down low to a low purchase point, usually on one of the corners, and pull it towards you. Then you do the same on the other side, and then from there you pull that out and then lift it straight up, because it hooks into the top there. Then if you look behind here before going too far, if we can get a good picture there. So this is for your door handle. What you want to do is lift up from the back, and it'll pop out like that, because it just slides in and clips into position. And then the last thing we got to disconnect before we take this out is the window switch. And if you feel the front of it, there's like a little pin. Push that in and pull the entire thing down. If I can get a good purchase on it. There you go. So that's the pin I'm talking about. So you push that in and just pull straight down. Now the door panel can come off, and you've got a bearskin. Right, so this is what the inside of the door looks like. It's just got this waterproof foam padding on the inside. Most other vehicles will be just a plastic sheet or something like that. And we're going to be reusing this, so we're going to very carefully be pulling it off, because it uses this non-hardened silicone to hold it on, and this foam rips incredibly easily. So you just want to work your way along the side, making sure to pull on the rubber gasket itself and not the foam, because if you rip the foam, it destroys the integrity of the seal. And I mean, you don't need to reuse these. You can just reuse this and cut it out to the shape, and that does provide extra sound deadening. But for me, I always feel like the sound deadening on the inside does enough, and this is a good material itself to keep the sound out and stop reverberation through the door. So I like to reuse it. Plus it keeps it looking factory, which I like mods that, besides things like roof racks and snorkels and stuff, I like to keep things looking pretty factory. Now, should have seen my older cars. They were not factory at all. So we're just going to keep going around and pull this entire. Now that we've got that inner skin off, I'm also going to be removing the speaker, because it just allows you better access with your hand to put the padding down. Also for me to get that foam pad in behind the speaker. So yet again, we're going to use that T20 Torx bit. If you have a Ford Ranger, I'd recommend just buying some Torx bit tools, because you're going to need them. And I mean, they're pretty expensive. Get yourself a good set like King Chrome or SP, and you can either get little Allen key style ones like this, or a T-handle. T-handles, to me, they have less room to work with sometimes, because sometimes you need to get these in a pretty tight space, and the T-handle's just a bit big. Or you can even get the ones that attach to the end of your your ratchets with your like quarters and 3/8 and everything like that, they're also a good option to use. Alright, now I'm going to talk a bit about these paper cone speakers, because there's a lot of popular misconceptions about paper cone and their quality and stuff like that, and the way that people upgrade them. With paper cone, they sort of are a paper cardboard composite, and they do seem a lot cheaper than your normal one, just because they don't have the durability of like your plastics and stuff like that. Just because, especially up north here where I am, it gets incredibly humid up here, so you do tend to lose these speakers a lot faster than your plastic ones. But in saying that, these can still last a good like 15-20 years, so they're not a bad quality speaker. The other thing is, like, people then go out and buy, you know, your $50, your $100 speakers to replace these, and I'm like, you're downgrading it so much. Like, unless you're spending, like, unfortunate to say, like $300 or $400 on a pair of good quality speakers, where the face of them is made from either a carbon Kevlar composite, or is like some made are bamboo, some are their own special blends of different types of plastics and polyurethane, sandwiched in between like fibers and stuff. And the reason those are the only ones that are going to be better is because once you go to a speaker that has a plastic cone, you change the stiffness of the speaker face here. And that is super important to the sound quality of a speaker, is how stiff this face is. Because you can imagine, if the speaker is moving, it needs that cone to be as stiff as possible to create the best clarity as possible. Once it goes to plastics, which 90% of your aftermarket speakers are, especially that are cheap, those start to warp and do all sort of crazy dances and get affected by their own reverberation from behind the door, from the face of your door card, and they just distort themselves, and the sound quality is terrible. Not only that, as the speaker cone distorts, it also moves your coil, which means the coil is now shifting around and contacting the side of the magnet, which is how you get a lot of that like scratchy sounds coming from your speakers. And once you get that, the speaker is not long for this world. So if you're going to upgrade a speaker, make sure you get good quality, because believe it or not, these cardboard speakers, they're much better quality than most people ever realize. So that's why I'm not upgrading them at the moment. I will eventually, but I am going to go for a nice proper set of Focal K2s or something like that, with a nice stiff cone, a big coil in the back, and then I can run an amp through and never worry about them distorting or burning themselves out. We've covered all the boring bits about speakers. Now what we're going to do is we're going to prep the surface. So as you can see, there are only a few holes to get access to. Holes like this is a bit small for my gigantic hands, but you've got pretty much that hole up there, the speaker hole, and if you're really game, you've got that one up there. But what we're going to do is we're going to grab our rag, we're going to put some prep wash on it, prep sol or wax and grease remover to those uninitiated. We're going to grab our cloth, pour some on it, and we're going to clean the inside of the door just to make sure that it's a good clean surface for the basically the tar on the back of this to stick to. Grab the cloth, tip some onto it, grab the surface, and we're just going to run inside the door, cleaning up all the surfaces we're going to be sticking to. Alright, now that that surface is clean, I'm probably going to put you guys on as much as a time lapse as I can do. But essentially the process from here is we're going to stretch out this roll to about the size of where we want it to go. And then we're going to measure the hole sizes, so we're going to measure enough and cut down that we can actually get the material through the holes. and then we're just going to start laying plate after plate after plate all the way up the door. You can leave gaps in between and they can overlap, so you don't have to be too critical about how this stuff is layered. It doesn't have to be seam to seam, and it doesn't have to go all the way to the edge, and it's not like waterproofing. You don't have to layer over each other and make sure that no sound's going to get through. It's like, if you really wanted to, all you have to do is cut off a little strip, stick one on the bottom, cut off another little strip, stick it on top, and that already is a massive improvement because it just absorbs the vibration. But I like to coat the entire inside of the door just because it really does improve the sound quality inside the cab, the speaker sound quality, and just general noise reduction in general. I'm going to say general about 20 more times in this video. General. So that's the rear door done. So we've got all our focal sound deadening material laid in behind, as you can see through all those holes. I'm not going to worry too much about your reinforcement bar there. It doesn't really resonate sound too much. We've got our speaker foam just behind where the speaker's going to go. And then I just used a few off-cut bits, just laid it on the front panel. What that basically does, it's just absorbs some of the vibrations. You don't have to do it. I just occasionally like to throw in a few extra pieces on the outside because it just helps a little bit with vibration on this inner skin. But when it's also covered with that foam layer, and then the door card also has that soundproofing foam, and basically it just completely seals up this entire area. So you don't need those ones, but they just do help. Now we're going to be moving on to the front door. It's much of a muchness, pretty much the same thing. You've got your one screw behind that panel there, your two screws here. It's just a much longer panel to do, so start about the back or in the middle here, do the same thing. That clip up there is going to be really loud and a bit firm, so hold it up as high as possible so you don't fracture the trim piece itself. The rest comes off pretty easily. And then you've also got just another two screws down the bottom, but this does have one extra step, which is removing the tweeter. We just basically just get a grip on it and pull away from the surface, because it's got two pressure clips behind it. If I can get a good purchase on it. Come on. There we go. So you've got just those two clips in there, then undo this little clip down the bottom, push that in, slide it out. Job done. Now just do the door panel sort of like you did the rear, same screws and everything like that, just a longer piece there. Now that that's all done, let's take her for a spin and see what she sounds like. Fortunately, I don't have to go too far to get a rough road or road noise, because thankfully I live on a cobbled road right here at my house, so I'm instantly going to tell the difference. I don't know about you guys. Let's make sure that keep the radio down. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, turns out I haven't been recording most of this, which is unfortunate because I bloody made some good jokes, eh? But I was talking before, let's get back on the road here, about how much of a difference just doing the doors will do for your peace of mind driving along, do a long road trip, and I've got no wind noise whatsoever. Because this car's already got double glazed windows and stuff like that, so they're super quiet windows. So why not do something with the doors to make them a little bit quieter, just to take advantage of that? I mean, why the hell not? And I mean, I do have to do the back of the cab, that back panel there. I'll show you the video somewhere here. But basically that entire thing becomes a speaker. It's just one large panel that just echoes the sound. Like, you close the door, that thing bows in and out, and then it's such a loud thud. Not only that, it's all the noise coming from your tray as well, so it's a worthwhile mod. I'm gonna have to really speed up here. Let this Hilux go by, because he's a madman. Nope, I did not say that. And work my way in here. But as you can hear, I mean, I've got no music playing, no aircon. There's a bit of noise from the roof at the moment, which I will change eventually. But other than that, it's pretty quiet in here. I think the microphone might pick it up more than I can hear it. Let this little Polo go by. But besides just a little bit of wind noise, this thing's dead quiet. Impressively so. And I mean, that's the main thing I want to do with this car. Like, every single car I've ever had in the past, I've always put an exhaust on it, because I've always had petrols, and used to have a V8 Mustang, and I used to have a turboed MX-5, and a Jeep Wrangler, and I love the sounds of the engines. But I'm getting a bit older. You know, I want to do long road trips in this car, and that's why I bought it. So why would I want to make the exhaust louder? I'll get a snorkel and all that, because I love the sound of my turbo. But to me, an exhaust on a diesel just kind of sounds like a megaphone on a wet fart. So I don't see much point in it. Just the slight benefit you get performance-wise really isn't enough for me to justify doing an exhaust. I mean, if they do an upgraded exhaust where you've got your larger pipes and stuff like that without making it too loud, you bet I'll get it. But I just don't want to annoy my neighbors. I'm in and out like at past midnight up and down my street, so I don't want to annoy my neighbors anymore. Had too many complaints from the Mustang. But let me know it's out there, but I just don't want to make it any louder. I want to make this thing as quiet as possible. I want to feel like I'm driving a Maybach, like to the outback and going for a camp. It might make you sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but I've had uncomfortable four-wheel drives in the past, and it's just not why I bought this thing. I didn't want to make it uncomfortable with stiffer springs, which I might have to do, just for when I get like a bull bar and I carry all the gear in the back. I'm gonna need that extra heavy springs, which shouldn't make too much of a difference because most of the extra weight's gonna be permanent anyway, like the water tank, the larger fuel tank, the bull bar, the winch. But still keep it heavier, but still nice and soft and a good cruiser. Because my Jeep Wrangler, man, that thing was capable off-road, front, back, diff lockers, 4-inch suspension lift, 3-inch tires. She could go anywhere, just not comfortably. And that's just not the scene I'm in anymore. I'm not 17 anymore. I don't particularly want to drive for 3 hours and massive discomfort for a little bit of a off-road experience that I can't do for too long because I'm already out of fuel. Alright, Alright, we're gonna get onto the cobbles here in a second. And that'll really show how loud this is. I don't know why you could like that noise. It's like sitting on a tractor. And not a good tractor either. I'm talking like an old tractor. I can never... The thing with the diesel is like I've been working on engines for most of my life. And I've always been attuned to listen to an engine and like listen for pinging, rod knock, detonation, things like that. With a diesel, I can't do that. I'm constantly stressed. Because it's all rod knock and detonation and pinging. That's all a diesel is. But now this is a pretty heavy cobbled road. This shakes like brand new Mercedes and makes them rattle within a week. And I'm talking like $150,000 Mercedes. I don't hear anything besides that diesel, which is why I'm going to be dynamiting the firewall. But I don't hear the tires, I don't hear the cobbles, I don't hear the vibration through the doors. I could almost hear my subconscious talking to me. I think I hear a lawnmower. Can't be too sure. No, there is a lawnmower. It's right over there. Hey. So, in conclusion, that's an amazing modification for you to do to your car. Even if you just do the doors and you're not going to bother with the floors, the roof, and the back wall, even just that makes this car so much quieter and so much easier to live with. And it wasn't hard to live with before. This car from factory is one of the quietest cars I've ever owned. And I've owned like a C300 Mercedes, I've driven in a GLE coupe Mercedes, I've driven 3 Series BMWs, 5 Series BMWs, and this thing is right up there with them because they've got so much from factory. There's foam door inserts that are sandwiched in with more foam padding on the door cards, thick door cards, your double glazed windows. This entire thing is pretty well sound deadened, but you can always go that little bit better, especially like inside the doors with your BAM, something like that. Not only does it quieten the doors down, but it makes your sound system sound way better. So I would definitely recommend doing it. The focal BAM is quite an expensive bit. You could probably do all 4 doors with a BAM triple XL kit. I had a little bit left over from my Mustang when I did it, and I had basically a new double XL roll, and I've still got probably half that double X roll sitting there. So there's plenty in one of those rolls to do it, but I think one of those rolls is in the excess of over $300. But it is something to consider doing. I mean, just because it helps you out a lot. It's a lot quieter in here. It's a lot more luxurious, and I would really, really recommend it. Anyway, that's about it for this episode, guys. I think it's probably stretched on a bit long. But I'll hope you found it informative, and I'll see you all in the next video.